BBC Radio Shropshire's Nick Southall has been following today's developments and getting reaction from the council and parents, as well as head teacher at the school, Karen Moore.
Very sad and somewhat astounded. It's difficult to believe that the LA have decided to recommend that their proposals for the school closure should go ahead. That's despite the evidence from Ofsted in March this year, confirmed by our excellent GCSE results this year, that the school is a good school, providing a good standard of education. It seems to me that the LA are ploughing on regardless, whatever the facts. First, they stated that the proposals were about quality of education, but they've backtracked on that, saying there was never a concern about the quality of education at the Wakeman. Then they cited saving money. They recognise now that they won't save any money, long or short term. The money will go with the children. Building a new school in a few years' time will cost Shropshire millions.
The man recommending the closure to the Cabinet next week is Director of People Services, David Taylor.
There will be something of the order of 240 children at the Wakeman from this term onwards. It's going to be a phased process over a couple of years should the Cabinet decide to close. We want to see out the youngsters who are currently studying for their GCSEs. Essentially, if the Wakeman school were to close, about £1.75 million would be available for redistribution. Some of that will follow the pupil, and that's about 1.3 million. And therefore, depending on where the pupils went, the money, which is, a per pupil amount, would go to that school.
These are the financial reasons, but what do the parents think?
2 of our 5 children have been through Wakeman, and they're both now at university studying for degrees. It was the perfect fit for both of them in terms of education, and they loved it here.
It made me a much more confident individual. I remember the excellent teachers that I had. Often people say secondary school is the worst part of school life. For me, the Wakeman was the best part of school life. And that's been replicated for my daughter, who came here lacking in self-confidence and is now a bright, vibrant 15-year-old. Not only that, her academic ability has been improved and supported all the way through by excellent teaching throughout the school in all subject areas.
There are children that come to this school who've been excluded from other schools, who can't cope with them, can't cope with the truancy, and because it impacts on figures and finances, they get excluded from those schools. The Wakeman school picks up with those children, including getting them in year 11 when the system has failed them, takes them in, and they go out having achieved. They go out with certificates and feeling good about themselves and go back into society having been developed.
So is the fight to keep the Wakeman over?
No, it's not the end of the road. As I say, we will be campaigning hard to make sure Cabinet see sense.
And I guess you are calling on the support of the parents, the governors, to back you with this?
Yes, and I'm assured that we will get that support. There is a lot of support for the school. Parents will be devastated, governors will be devastated, but they are very, very strong supporters of the school.
About the Wakeman, which had been adjourned until today. So today the meeting took place, and we had, following their long campaign to keep the school open, we had pleas at the Cabinet meeting from pupils at the school, from counsellors, from the head teacher, from governors at the school, who were all very impassioned. They were all very, very desperate to keep the school open. The atmosphere in the council chamber, in the Cabinet room, was very, very highly charged, and at certain times got really quite tense as people struggled to get their point across. They were appealing for the school to stay open, and at one point actually one of the pupils left the room. He was crying, and the council leader, Keith Barrow, decided that they should have a 5-minute break so everyone could just take a deep breath before they got back on to the business in hand. Now, one of the pupils that spoke at the meeting said that he felt the council had bullied the Wakeman school, and obviously the council denied that. So you can just get a flavour of some of the things that were going on this afternoon. So after that, when the break had been finished, a decision was made, and that decision, unanimously by all of the councillors on the Cabinet, was to close the Wakeman.
And what was the reaction?
Well, I don't think, in a way, after this very highly tensed highly tense atmosphere, that people were particularly surprised by the decision. After they'd heard all the arguments, it was quite a quick, they moved the recommendations, and quite quickly all of the councillors voted to go with them. But I think people were obviously angry and obviously very disappointed that it actually had come to this. They obviously thought they could stop this going ahead. Afterwards, I spoke to the head boy, Jack Price, and head girl, Serene Vivian, and this is what they had to say.
Almost relieved that it's over, in a sense, but still angry and frustrated at even all the points we put out. They're not listening, are they?
It's anger and frustration, and they just really didn't listen. It's good that it's over, so we can now appeal and hopefully get some good news out of this, but it's really frustrating.
After the meeting, I also managed to catch up with the head teacher, Karen Moore, and this is what she had to say.
I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised. I think it's typical of the approach of this council and railroading things through with no thought for the future.
So they all say the council hasn't listened and that they're not surprised by the decision. Why has the Cabinet carried on with these proposals?
Well, obviously, we've heard over the last few months huge amount of opposition from the Wakeman, not to mention the other schools that that were on the list as well. The council would say that they have been listening, that they've actively been going out, they've been talking to parents, they've had meeting after meeting. So I think they would say they definitely have. And at the end of it, they say that, at the moment, the Wakeman has only got 240 pupils. It has a capacity to have 675. That's their argument. They say that this year, the Wakeman is going to have a deficit of 160,000. They say that will only go up. Now, of course, the school says they have a 3-year plan, that if it wasn't for all these rumours and things, they would have more pupils, and they've got a plan to get that back on track. They say within 3 years they can make the school viable. But Aggie Caesar Homden, who's the councillor with the responsibility for education, said in the meeting that she didn't think the school could be viable, sustainable or cost effective. The council does say that it has listened, and they also say that they've given plenty of chances for the Wakeman, but no one's come up with a proper alternative.
As we said throughout this whole process, we have said to the schools and their communities, this is in your hands. The director and the officers have looked at every possible alternative, and they could not come up with any other solution than the proposal to close the Wakeman school. Now, what we have done is we said to the Wakeman school, this is in your hands. Please come forward and give us an alternative viable solution. We do not want to be closing schools. But unfortunately, the school or the governors or the community did not come forward with a viable, sustainable, long-term alternative to the proposals.
So what next?
Well, I think people will go away tonight reflecting on what's happened today, and they'll obviously be very, very emotional. The people who want to support the school have one argument. The council quite clearly has its own view, and it's taken that decision today. I don't think that, based on the fight that we've seen so far, that the head teacher or the pupils or the governors are just going to take this sitting down. I don't think they're just going to go away quietly and forget that this has ever happened, because obviously by 2013 this school will close unless they take dramatic action.
Our political reporter Amber Henshaw, thank you.
The news at 6 o'clock. I'm Debbie Mitchell. The Church of England in Shropshire has taken the rare step of intervening in Shropshire Council's proposals to close the Wakeman Secondary School in Shrewsbury. The Diocese of Lichfield is a statutory consultee in the process, but it's in...
Now, the Wakeman Secondary School in Shrewsbury proposals from Shropshire Council to close that particular school has made the Church of England in Shropshire take a rare step of intervening. Now, the Diocese of Lichfield has to be consulted in this process, but it's unusual for it to intervene in this way for a non-church school and to refer it to the school's adjudicator. Andy Raymond, Chair of Governors at the Wakeman, says it's an important move.
When we first got involved with the consultation process, we invited the Bishop Mark, to come and see the school, and he was very impressed with the facilities that we've got and the level of education that's been provided, and then he referred the matter to Lichfield. So from that background, we've kept a dialogue going, and they have now lodged an appeal against the decision because it's an unfair decision.
The Diocese of Lichfield's Director of Education is Colin Hopkins, and he's on the phone now. Good morning to you, Colin.
Good morning.
Have you ever done anything like this before? It is quite rare, isn't it?
In the Diocese of Lichfield, we have not done this, in my memory, certainly, but I do know that occasionally other dioceses have taken this step where they felt that there was a need to refer a particular decision to some kind of external review or scrutiny, and that is the approach we've taken here.
But it is a non-church school. I expect with church schools we would have perhaps expected this, but why have you done this with a non-church school?
You're absolutely right. The Wakeman is not a Church of England school, and we do not, in fact, have any formal links with the school. But if the Wakeman is to survive, we'd certainly be interested in developing a stronger link, particularly with Shrewsbury Abbey next door. But I think the key thing for us, really, is that we are not certain that a clear educational case for the closure of the Wakeman has been made. The case generally appears to be centred on finance and pupil numbers and place planning, and whilst we understand the complexity of all that, and we're not unsympathetic actually to the position the local authority finds itself in, nevertheless we're not dealing with a failing school here. Earlier this year, Ofsted judged the school to be good, said the leadership was outstanding, said that the school dealt with those with special educational needs in a particularly successful way, and that it had sustained capacity for improvement. And indeed, the school has improved. The GCSE results this year were at 61%, including English and Maths, 5 or more good passes, that is, and that was a 16% improvement on last year. So what we have here is a good school and an improving school, which is being closed, and that raises all kinds of issues.
So this is with a mortarboard on and not a mitre?
With a mortarboard on, certainly. We just feel that the actual case in terms of the educational issues needs to be addressed in a much more detailed way than it has been.
Can the school refer the decision to the office of the school's adjudicator?
The school itself can't do that, no. The Board of Education can, because we are one of the statutory bodies which has the power to do that.
Does your decision make any difference, do you think?
Well, I hope that what it will do is it will enable somebody who's completely independent to come in and have a look at the case from both sides, look at the case which the local authority has presented, and look at the case which the school wishes to present also. And what we want to do here really is to, because this is such a complex issue, we don't think the case for closure is absolutely clear-cut, and we think that the young people in that school deserve the right to have another hearing, as it were, and for the decision, whatever it is, to be looked at again in an objective way.
Colin, thank you for joining us this morning. That's the Diocese of Lichfield's Director of Education, Colin Hopkins, obviously on BBC Radio Shropshire. We'll keep you up to date.